नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम ओ राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. O Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. O Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari, Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari. Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari, Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari. Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari, Jai Shachinandana Gaura Hari. Jai Radhe Shyam Radhe Shyam Radhe Shyam, Jai Radhe Shyam. Jai Radhe Shyam Radhe Shyam Radhe Shyam, Jai Radhe Shyam. Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shiva Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shiva Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Shiva Guru Deva. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So I shall read about a dramatic incident from the Juhu story and speak about that. And then at the end, you can ask questions or offer comments. So we had a small temple. We're going back now to 1973, and we had built what we called a semi-permanent temple with condo wall steel tubes and asbestos sheets for the roof. And we had obtained permission for the temple from the Bombay Municipal Corporation, which was a temporary permission valid for 1 year, and it had to be renewed every year thereafter. Near the end of the first year, when we approached the municipality for a renewal, we did not get any reply. So we wrote them another letter, again, without response. Finally, when the permit was about to expire, I took all the relevant papers and went straight to the municipal commissioner at City Hall. I explained the situation in less than 5 minutes, giving the man a concise account without mention of Mr. Nair or our dispute with him. And based on my explanation and the documentation I had brought, the commissioner granted the year's extension. Just as I was coming out of his office, however, I saw one of Mrs. Nair's agents, and I could tell that something was up. I think most of you know the basic outline of the story, but just in case. Mr. A.B. Nair, actually the land was in the name of his wife, but Mr. A.B. Nair had some land in Juhu. And he met Srila Prabhupada, and he wrote him saying that he had some good land at Juhu that would be just suitable for a good purpose, such as Srila Prabhupada's. But it turned out that Mr. Nair was a cheater, and his idea was to take money from Srila Prabhupada and embed within the sales agreement a condition that he would make sure Srila Prabhupada could not fulfill. And then when Prabhupada would be unable to fulfill the condition, Mr. Nair would cancel the sales agreement and keep the money. That was his plan. And even earlier, Mr. Nair had entered into an agreement to sell the same land to someone else. And he used the same tactic. He embedded a condition within the agreement that Mr. Nair made sure that the purchaser would not be able to fulfill. And then Mr. Nair canceled the agreement and kept the money. So that was the position. But Srila Prabhupada, understanding the threat from Mr. Nair from the beginning, made a condition that upon paying a certain down payment, we would get possession of the land. And Srila Prabhupada immediately arranged for a pandal program on the front of the land. And a nice picture of Srimati Dasi going into the hole. That was part of that early celebration. And so Prabhupada had a pandal program, and he arranged for the deities of Shri Radharasa Bihari to be brought from the rented apartment that we had in the Akash Ganga building on Bulabai Desai Road, which was also known as Warden Road. And the deities are brought to Juhu, Srimati Radha, in taxis. Srimati Radharani was on the lap of some devotees in one taxi, and Sri Ras Bihari was in the lap of another devotee in another taxi. And so the deities were immediately placed in the pandal and worshipped in the pandal. Then, after the pandal program, Srila Prabhupada left, and there was anyway, he wanted us to establish a temple for Radharasa Bihari where they could stay and be worshipped until the big temple was ready. And so we, as I mentioned, we built this temple. We called it a semi-permanent temple. And as I mentioned, that the permission from the temple had to be renewed every year. So I went to the municipal commissioner's office in City Hall, and he granted a year's extension. Just as I was coming out of his office, however, I saw one of Mrs. Nair's agents, and I could tell that something was up. So I went straight into the commissioner's secretary's office and induced him to type the permission right then on the spot and get the commissioner's signature. I sat there until he returned with the signed document, and then I took it with me and left. But I knew that Mrs. Nair was trying somehow to get the land back. And as it is said, possession is 9/10 of the law. So Srila Prabhupada was very keen that we should get possession, and he knew even more so if we brought the deities onto the land, that it would, among other things, make our possession more secure. We had also heard rumors that the municipality was planning to demolish the temple. In a letter dated April 28th, I wrote to the Santa Cruz Police Department, "We are the owners of Sri Sri Radha Krishna Temple at Hare Krishna Land at Juhu Village." In his letter dated April 27th, 1973, the Municipal Commissioner of Bombay, Sri M.W. Desai, has informed us that the permission for the shed of Condowood steel tube frame, which is the temple, is extended for 1 year. 2 days ago, a man allegedly from the municipal corporation threatened that at 9 or 10 this morning, the municipality would come and demolish the temple. Such an act would be totally illegal, since the commissioner himself had assured us that the permission is extended. And since the municipality had given us until April 29th to show why the temple should not be demolished, which we have done. Should the alleged authorities from the municipality come to demolish the temple, there is likely to be a breach of peace, and we request you to be on hand to prevent any such disturbance. And we also alerted the local devotees and our friends about the danger. Tamal Krishna and his party were traveling in Madhya Pradesh, and I was keeping him informed by post. He would come every now and then just to see how things were going. And a few weeks later, in mid-May, he came for a visit, enlivened and full of stories about his preaching. At around 10 o'clock in the morning of May 18th, Tamal Krishna left to rejoin his party. And less than 2 hours after his departure, 2 large trucks from the Bombay Municipal Corporation drove onto Hare Krishna land, and 50 municipal workers carrying crowbars, chisels, and sledgehammers descended on the temple. Following behind was a big police truck from which 20 or 30 constables emerged. I rushed forward to meet the municipal officer in charge and asked him what was happening, why they were there. He said that the structure was unauthorized and that they had come to demolish it. I replied that the temple was authorized and that I had the papers to prove it, that I had just had our permit removed. "We have permission," I said. "You can't do this." The officers, however, seemed uninterested. Even after I showed him the permit and the letter I had received at City Hall, signed by the municipal commissioner himself. "We don't accept your papers," he said, and he ordered the demolition to begin. I approached the policeman for help, but was told offhandedly, "We are just here to see that there is no trouble." Actually, they knew that we would try to stop the demolition, and they were there to make sure it continued without interference. What we heard later was that Mrs. Nair had collected 25,000 rupees on the death of her husband and had distributed the money to the municipal corporation and the police. The municipal councillor for Juhu, Pushpakant Matre, who had been supporting Mr. Nair all along, had arranged for the temple to be demolished. Some workers put a ladder up against the temple, but when one of them was about to climb up with a sledgehammer to break the roof, I knocked the ladder over. 3 policemen grabbed me, one by each arm and one by the neck, and tossed me into the police truck. Other devotees rushed forward to stop the demolition, but one by one, each was apprehended and thrown into the truck. Maybe 20 of us in all. The last one left was Maithili, the head pujari. She had locked the doors to the deity chamber and was standing steadfast in front of them, ready to knock down anyone who came near. And she had quite a big body and a big heart. Quote, "I was carrying the deity's Raj Bhog offering," she later recalled, "when I saw that there were a lot of policemen surrounding the temple. I dropped the plates and started to run toward the temple. I closed, locked, and bolted the deity room doors, which were up a few steps, and I stood on the top step with my back to the doors. The workers were knocking down the whole roof of the temple hall, including the long tube lights, as well as the framed pictures of Krishna. And when they turned to destroy Tulsi, I left my position with my back to the doors and went to the middle of the temple where Tulsi was standing from the morning, because they were going to hit her. And at that point, they grabbed me. I hit one of the officers in the face. Then they all came around me and started to drag me out of the temple. On the way, I wrapped my elbow around one of the steel tubes supporting the corners of the temple and held on as hard as I could." End quote. She was a big, strong woman, and they couldn't pry her off. Quote, "They started hitting my elbow with the sticks so I would let go, and I fell onto the floor of the temple. And then they picked me up by one foot and one braid of my hair and dragged me across the field, which was now full of people watching the whole thing. They carried me halfway across the field, and as many people watched in horror, threw me face down into the police wagon." When Prabhupada heard that Maithili had been kicking and screaming as the policemen were dragging her by the hair, he said that she would go back to Godhead kicking and screaming. And he compared her to Draupadi, whose hair, infamously, had been grabbed by the evil Dusashana. After Maithili had been dragged from the temple, two women, Jagat Purusha's mother-in-law, Yashoda, and another local woman, guarded the deities. And because they were Hindu Indian ladies, the police did not touch them. But other than them, no one, not any of the hundreds of neighbors, tenants, or passers-by, lifted a finger to help us. When the demolition squad had destroyed or dismantled the entire temple hall except for the steel poles supporting the roof, they called for a blowtorch. Meanwhile, some of the neighbors who opposed us had gathered to watch and were laughing and joking together. Matre was standing by the little Shiva temple across the street, and he and his accomplices were enjoying the show. One man who lived across the street, Krishna Rao Rane, stood quite close and was laughing as he watched the workers cutting the steel rods with the blowtorch. Before we arrived on the land, he had distilled illegal liquor there and hid it in the overgrown weeds and bushes. He was quite an influential man in Juhu, in a tamasic sort of way, and didn't think he would maintain the same power, the same hold on people with us there. Yashoda, Jagat Purush Prabhu's mother-in-law, was something of a mystic. And when she saw the man watching and laughing, she cursed him. Just as you are laughing now when Krishna's temple is being burned, one day you will also burn. Now, I'll skip ahead because we don't have time to read, so much from the book. But Yashoda's curse came true. She had said, just as you are laughing now when Krishna's temple is being burned, one day you will also burn. And it turned out that sometime thereafter, he put kerosene on himself and lit it and committed suicide. And he burned to death. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Only one devotee wasn't arrested during the demolition, Manasvi. He was crouched behind some bushes watching the whole thing. When he saw us all being carried away, he found a telephone, called Mr. Mahadevia, our friend from the city, and asked him to help. Mr. Mahadevia phoned Bal Thackeray, a staunch Hindu and the founder and leader of the Shiv Sena, one of Bombay's most powerful political parties, and told him what was happening. If he did not intervene, Mr. Mahadevia told him, the temple would be destroyed and he would get a bad name. Bal Thackeray phoned the municipal commissioner, informed him of what was taking place, and told him to stop the demolition. The municipal commissioner, being part of the clique that had conspired against the temple, objected. But Bal Thackeray warned him, just remember who this city belongs to. Okay, Balasab, okay, the commissioner said. And he called the local ward, which had dispatched the attackers, and told them to halt the demolition. The ward officer himself came running, reached the site just as the workers were getting ready to dismantle the deity chamber, and ordered them to stop. They had already completely destroyed the Darshan Mandap viewing area and had removed the first few pieces of the roof covering the deities. Those of us in the police truck were taken to the Santa Cruz station and locked up in a holding cell. I want to phone my lawyer, I called out. No phone calls, they said. You stay where you are. You're not going anywhere. When our friend, Dr. Singhal from nearby Villa Parla, heard that we had been arrested, he came to the station and appealed to the officer in charge on our behalf. They are not sinful, he said, or criminals, and they are not hypocrites. They are genuine people. We know them. They should be released. The police allowed Dr. Singhal to come inside and see us. Quote, the devotees were doing kirtan, his wife recounted, sitting and chanting with cartels. They were not sad, except for the deities in the temple. Otherwise, they were happy there. They had full faith in Krishna. Only after several hours were we released from custody and able to return to the site. When we got back from the police station, we came upon a strange scene. In the middle of a vacant lot strewn with rubble and the metal bars that had once supported the temple structure were the beautiful deities of Sri Sri Radharasa Bihari, dressed in silver and green outfits and garlanded with flowers. They stood on their carved teakwood altar amid the fragrant scent of burning incense and the warm glow of lamps. Only a few pieces of the roof over them had been removed. Other than that, they and their deity room remained intact. And the picture of Lord Nrsingadev over the altar doors, though slightly tilted to the side, had survived as well, as if he was looking down upon us and assuring us that he had been there to protect the deities. Jai Nrsimhadev. It was amazing, Maithili recalled. The flower that I had put behind the ear of Radharasa Bihari was still there, and the ghee lamps were still burning. The only offering they had missed was the Raj Bhog offering. The next morning, headlines broadcast the news of the demolition. Quote, unauthorized temple demolished by municipal authorities, announced the Free Press Journal, of which Mr. Nair had been the editor. And then they had their report. When Srila Prabhupada was informed of what had happened, he was, of course, concerned. But he told us not to worry. The episode was part of Krishna's plan, he said. And if we took it as an opportunity, the results would be positive. The demolition of our temple by the municipality would actually strengthen our position. Still, he told us, the incident showed that we could not manage it all on our own. We needed the help of our life members. We should take advantage of the incident to organize them and get them more involved in our activities and, along with our other supporters and sympathizers, publicly protest the attack, expose the persons responsible, and begin the rebuilding process. He suggested several who might be of particular assistance. Mr. Sadaji Whitlow, who led the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, an organization that defended Hindu Dharma, could help with publicity, and Mr. Sethi could help prevent further attacks. So we undertook a campaign to meet all the members of the municipal corporation and convince them that our cause was justified and that the temple should be allowed to remain. But after some time, we realized we didn't actually need permission to rebuild the temple, because we had already gotten the permission for the temple to be extended. So all we had to do really was just to rebuild it. So all right, so I'll come to that point. At one of the meetings at Sadaji Whitlow's office, one of our friends pointed out that we might not actually need permission after all. We had already been approved to build the temple in the first place, and the municipal commissioner had agreed to extend the temple's permit. And the municipality didn't have any valid grounds for its demolition. So although we hadn't specifically been given permission to rebuild, there was no ruling that said we couldn't. Nothing to stop us from just restoring it. Somehow Mrs. Nair found out what we were planning to do, and the next day, Friday, she went to the High Court with a petition for an injunction to prevent us from rebuilding. It was her property, she argued, and she hadn't given us permission. She petitioned that, quote, pending the hearing and final disposal of the suits, the defendants, their servants, and agents may be restrained by an order and injunction of this honorable court from constructing or reconstructing any structure on the plaintiff's said property or any part thereof. And that, quote, pending the hearing and final disposing of the suit, the defendants, their servants, and agents may be restrained by an order and injunction of this honorable court from entering into or remaining upon or otherwise committing trespass on or into the plaintiff's said land. The judge, Justice Nayan, had been both Mr. Setti's advocate and a chief guest at our second Cross Maidan Pandal, so he was familiar with our society and activities and appreciative of Prabhupada and our movement. He said he would consider granting the injunction only after he had heard both sides, because it was Friday, he pointed out, the end of the week. He would take up the matter on Monday. Just give a temporary injunction for the weekend and then you decide on the permanent injunction, Mrs. Nair appealed, but her request was denied. No, Justice Nayan responded. Without hearing the other side, I will not pass any judgment. When we heard of Mrs. Nair's position and the judge's response, we knew we had to take advantage of the opportunity. So the next day, Saturday, I began to try to gather construction materials to rebuild the temple. It just so happened that Mr. Setti, who was a building contractor, had come to Juhu that day to visit his house under construction in the Juhu Villa Parla development scheme and enjoy a weekend beach outing. And before returning home, he visited the temple. When we came, he recalled, we saw that the small shed had been demolished, and the description given to us of the demolition was horrifying. Not only was the temple demolished, but they wanted to take away the deities. Mr. Setti was in poor health, but he declared, no matter what laborers are available or not, I will rebuild this temple and will do the labor work myself. As it turned out, he was able to bring plenty of laborers and also supplies from his own construction sites. Quote, I got the material from Andheri East, where my work was going on. Bricks, sand, cement, and asbestos cement sheets for the roof. We got an electric welding machine and a person from a Jogapati slum who knew welding and welded all the pipes which the asbestos sheets would go on. In the course of the day, Mrs. Nair, Matre, and Mrs. Nair's solicitor, Bachubai Shah, all came to the site. You can't do this, they shouted, demanding that we stop. Bachubai Shah, the son of Chimanlal Shah, the senior solicitor, came to serve me with what I presumed to be a notice enjoining me from rebuilding the temple and threatening me with consequences if I did. But when I saw him, I ran away as fast as I could. And he came running after me as fast as he could in his suit and tie. I thought, the respectable solicitor Bachubai Shah is running after me like a child in a playground. Where is his dignity? He couldn't catch me. And when I looked back from a safe distance, I saw him, looking frustrated, leaving the letter with someone else who just happened to be there, with no proof that I had received it or ever would. Matre too demanded that we halt the construction. No, Mr. Setti replied, why should we stop? You can build it up, Matre threatened, but I will come in the night with 50 gundas, hooligans, and break it down. Mr. Setti turned to his son, who was by his side, and said, Brij Mohan, bring my revolver and my rifle. Then he said to Matre, don't bring 50 gundas, bring 100, bring 200. I have 250 cartridges. He used the word cartouche. I have 250 cartridges. You'll have to bring at least 251. Mr. Seti had a Kshatriya side, and he was staunch. They did not count on the amazing heroism and bravery of my personal hero, Mr. P.L. Seti, Maithili said later, echoing everyone's admiration. As Brij Mohan Seti remembered, so, with the revolver in my hand and the rifle in Daddy's hand, we started the work. We could not do this because of something in us, but because of the blessings of Prabhupada. Only with his blessings and mercy could we start the construction. The entire night it was raining cats and dogs, but we never stopped the work. It went on. As the rain fell, Mr. Seti recalled how by lifting Govardhan Hill, Lord Krishna had protected the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the devastating rainfall sent by Indra. Mr. Seti was unperturbed. Indra wants to test me, he thought. All right, if you want to come down, you can come down more heavily. But I have the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. I have to rebuild the temple, and I will. So there's more, and all the details are relishable, but again, for the sake of time, I'll skip ahead a little. Mr. Seti and his son, the Friends and Life members, and the laborers stayed up all night to protect and complete the construction. I was there with a gun, Mr. Seti recounted. We started at 9. At 11, one man came at the road, but I challenged him. If you come inside, I will shoot you. And he ran away and shouted to some other men, they're ready to fight. Don't go there. The devotees, life members, masons, and other skilled workers, laborers, and other friends did it. They put it all up in that one night, finishing at 4 a.m, and no one came to disturb the work. And then we had Mangal Arati. Matre returned around 7 the next morning, but by then it was too late. It is built, we told him. Go to the court. Later that morning, we appeared in the High Court and told the judge that the temple had already been rebuilt. What is built, he said to Mrs. Nair. No one can destroy the temple. When Prabhupada heard the news, he considered it a complete victory. The temple had been rebuilt. So, I'll just read one more part in which Srila Prabhupada appreciated Mr. Seti's Kshatriya spirit. During the temple reconstruction, Mr. Seti had demonstrated his Kshatriya spirit, for which Prabhupada expressed his appreciation, also teaching us a lesson that sometimes a fighting spirit was required. He said later, quote, in this way we have to fight. We should not be afraid for these rascals. Why should you be afraid? If they take to Gundaism, we shall engage 50 Gundas. Come on, let us see. We have to maintain that spirit. Anyaya ye kare praye, anyaya ye sahe. Rabindranath Tagore's poetry. one who does wrong and one who suffers wrong, he is wrong. One should not do anything wrong. One should not suffer anything wrong. That is human. If somebody does harm to me, wrong to me, I cannot suffer it. I shall not do harm to anyone. That's all right. But if you want to give me suffering, I must fight you. Why shall I suffer? That is Kshatriya spirit. Yude chapya palayanam. If you are challenging me then, all right, come on, I accept this challenge. We have to do like that. Prabhupada was referring to the verse in the Bhagavad Gita 1843 describing the qualities of Kshatriya. Soryam tejo dritir dakshyam yude chapya palayanam danam ishwara bhavascha kshatram karma svabhavajam. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Prabhupada continued, if someone is a tatayi, aggressor, you unnecessarily attack me, I must first kill you. That is my duty. Just like you have done here, Satiji, I'll bring my revolver. That is argumentum ad baculum. Here they wanted to put us into trouble, and he was in great trouble. So he came and stood, all right, come on, we shall fight. Bring my revolver. He did that. So we have to do like that. Why shall I tolerate unnecessary injustice? Take that spirit. Referring to the rebuilding of the temple, Mr. Sethi said, I declared, if they challenge us, I'm ready. Come on. In the middle of the night, at the temple, I challenged, come on. You are 150, we are not afraid. Then when Matre came with that barrister to give Giriraj notice, I scolded and insulted him publicly. Therefore, Prabhupada said, Matre was so against that we must stop this. Yes, I heard from that doctor that he was insulted by Seti. Either Seti should go like that, he has repeated. He gave some hint. I will not let that happen. And that doctor was Matre's man. He also gave hint. Give Matre 2 lakhs of rupees. He was a canvasser on behalf of Matre. He wanted 2 lakhs. We will not give you a single paisa, Mr. Seti concluded. We will fight you. Come on. So this is by a little excerpt from the Juhu story, one of the many exciting adventurous, dramatic pastimes that took place in Juhu in service to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Sri Radha Rasa Bihari. So now, if any of you have any questions or comments, you can speak. You can raise your hands, your virtual hands or your real hands.
So Hare Krishna devotees, as Maharaj asked, if you have any questions, please raise your hand in Zoom, or I also allowed each one of you to unmute yourself and you can ask the question to Maharaj.
Oh, I see Malati Dasi has her hand up.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Krishna Prabhupada, all glories to your divine grace. Guru Maharaj, after hearing the whole story, it seems that Mahatma was more into spoiling everything rather than Mr. Nair. But then, what did Prabhupada say about Mahatma? Where did he go? So he was more involved in spoiling everything, Guru Maharaj.
Oh, yes. Yes, Matre, he was bad. And I recall one incident that took place after the Juhu temple opened. Mr. Matre was exposed for some nefarious activities, illegal and immoral activities, and he was totally disgraced. And there was a procession on Juhu Road, right, that passed right in front of our temple, protesting against Matre. And Tamal Krishna Goswami was with me in Juhu at the time, and he commented, quoting from the Bhagavad Gita, that for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So, yeah, Matre was completely exposed and dishonored, as he deserved, without.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Can I ask one more question, Guru Maharaj?
Yes, well, Chandrika Priya has her hand up, so
Okay.
we'll chat and then we'll come back to you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your divine grace. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I wanted to ask you if you can share the past time related to this picture.
Well, I don't know if I would say I don't know if I would say it's a past time. It's a picture of Srila Prabhupada and me on Juhu Beach.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that in the temple shop, I saw that they had the same picture, and on the picture it was written Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, so I wasn't sure. So I thought I'll ask you if if it had some, yeah.
It was just a morning walk on Juhu Beach. So, Malati.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. We see in our lives, Guru Maharaj, that we face a lot of injustice sometimes, and due to our relationship, we cannot speak about it. So, is it that we always have to raise our voice whenever we see injustice, or just keep quiet and suffer the consequences?
Yes. It depends on the situation. Sometimes we have to tolerate. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he tolerated many things. Sometimes we have no choice because of the circumstances and because of who the other person is and what our relationship with the other person is. So sometimes we have to tolerate. As saying, sometimes it's better to tolerate than protest. But since you have joined us, I thought I would read a little about, because Malati Dasi is a disciple of His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. And he was very much there the night of the temple reconstruction. And, for the sake of brevity, I didn't read the little part about him. But now, inspired by Malati Dasi's presence, I'll read that a little bit. So, just to bring us back to the scene, it was pouring rain and the lightning was bad. This part I didn't read, but it'll bring us back to the scene. This is Mr. Sethi speaking. It was pouring rain and the lightning was bad. And when the men were putting up the asbestos sheets, they were slipping on the ground. So we brought 50 mats and put 20 men on them, one man supporting another so that there was no slipping. 10 masons worked all night, and we completed the walls and the plaster. End quote. Giriraj Swami was at the site too, chanting japa in the jeep. When someone asked him why he was there, he joked, "If anybody comes, I can make a quick escape." Then, actually, the whole thing was right in keeping with my nature, he recalled. Quote, "When there is a good chance to fight for Krishna, I don't run away from it. It was very exciting. I was ready. We stayed up all night, miserable night, but we were waiting for them to come. Mr. Sethi had a gun, and I had a knife or some other weapon. And the devotees, life members, masons, and other skilled workers, laborers, and other friends did it. They put it all up in that one night, finishing around 4 a.m, and no one came to disturb the work. And then we had Mangalarti."
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Are there any other? Yes?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Good to see you as always. Please accept my humble obeisances. I came in towards the end, but what I thought about was how this would be a wonderful movie, kind of like Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita. Just hearing the excitement. I mean, this would be a movie not only for devotees, but karmis would be able to appreciate this also. So hopefully one day that might be able to happen. I just wanted to make that comment. Like, this would be a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
The story of the temple, the Juhu story. That just the name is even catchy, right? So,
I agree. Some other devotees have also commented like that. It would make a good movie. Yes, thank you for that comment.
Ask a question. I don't know how to ask a question.
We're hearing you. You can.
You can?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
I'm not very techy, obviously. My grandson helps me. Maharaj, I think I was off in Jaipur purchasing deities at the time that all this horrendous action was going on. I'm so grateful you were there to be protecting the deities and helping Srila Prabhupada. I had encountered an opportunity to go to Jaipur and get Radha Govinda for New York. And as soon as I got back to Bombay, I got 3 letters to go get Detroit, Toronto, and Dallas deities. So I went off again, but I remember just personal thing about you, 1 or 2. Your mother would send you little cheese to make sure you got your protein. Remember the cheese? As a brahmachari, Mama was sending, I'm just assuming it came from your mother.
Yeah.
But anyhow, cheese, I remember. And then you were always very engaged. You were very staunch devotee. And well, one time, because I loved deities so much, purchasing them and all, I was always observing deities around Bombay and seeing the white ones tinted blue. I asked you if I could tint our deity blue. And I think you hesitated, but well, yes, a little. So I was sleeping in someone's home, and I'm just saying that because after I stayed up all night, because you said I'd have to do it while they were sleeping, and I went in there and painted Krishna blue, where I thought was just tinting, and then I went off to bed before Mangal Arati because I'd been up all night. Well, when the curtains opened up, I guess you were a little shocked, but a little too much. I don't even remember at this point how much blue, but anyway, you sent someone to come get me at this place where the women slept and come back, and you told me, Srimati, you take all that blue paint off of it. You thought it was way too much. Anyway, I just love having some kind of association recall with you because you're such a great devotee, and I really enjoyed being in your service. And gosh, I wish it was possible again, be closer and do some more service together.
Yeah. Yeah. I do remember you came down and we met. And
in Los Angeles. In 2018, I did a presentation.
Yeah.
It was wonderful seeing you there.
Feeling is mutual. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there is one question from Facebook group. Can I ask Maharaj?
Okay. I mean, there's Archie Mara is here on the Zoom. But either way, yeah, we'll do one and then we'll do the other.
Yeah, Maharaj, this is a question from Kritiki Tukar. Maharaj, Dandavats Pranam. I just wanted to ask that you and other devotees were exemplary in building the Juhu temple. It certainly pleased Prabhupada. Now the question is, Maharaj, how we can please you and Prabhupada? Sthane sthite, from wherever we are with our limited capabilities.
Oh, that's a nice question. Well, our basic mission is to taste Krishna consciousness and distribute Krishna consciousness. So if you, and I'm sure you are, if you're diligent in your spiritual practices, chanting your 16 rounds, following the regulated principles, and Srila Prabhupada's books, and also helping to spread Krishna consciousness, distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada will be pleased, and I'll be pleased. In one letter, Srila Prabhupada wrote me, go on increasing books and go on increasing my pleasure. So Prabhupada was always pleased when we distributed his books. So if you can do that, that would be a nice service. And does Kirti want any more? Is she satisfied? Do we know?
I don't know, Maharaj.
That's the answer. Now we have Arti Mera with her hand up.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. I'm a very, very new to this practice, and by the grace and by the mercy of all the Vaishnavas and senior devotees, I just happened to be a part of this reading group. And I was been gifted this book from one of my teacher, friend, guide, whoever you say. She gifted me this book, I'll Build You a Temple. And it's just a treasure for me. I just can't explain what this book means to me. It's difficult for me to understand the shlokas, you know. I don't have a brains and intelligence to understand. But this book makes me understand Srila Prabhupada so well, this practice so well. All this time, Guru Maharaj, I've just been hearing you, and the words just don't come out of my mouth. I don't know what holds me back. There is so much to share, so much to share. I just need your permission. If you may allow me to write and share what I feel and whatever doubts I have, if I have your permission to write to you.
Yes, you can write me, please.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so very much. And please bless me so that even I can develop that kind of a dedication and determination which all the devotees are going through, the way they are servicing each and every one. Please bless me that I can also able to get that in me.
Nice. Yes, I'll pray for you and I will support you in your efforts.
And another thing, Maharaj, with lot of encouragement from Prema Manjari Mataji, today I'm able to speak in front of you. She encouraged me so much. She said, you have to share your heart. You have to cry like a baby to seek the mercy. And today also in Zoom, she messaged me on my personal, Aarti, speak. Please share your heart. Thank you so much, Prema Manjari Mataji. Thank you so much, Ina Mataji, who gifted me this book. It means a lot to me. It means really a lot to me. Guru Maharaj, one thing more. Just now you said that one who does wrong and one who suffers wrong is wrong. If you could just explain this a little more, like in situations in this Kali Yuga, in this situation, how should we take this, the definition of wrong?
Yes, well, yes, we should not do wrong to anyone, but we also should not allow others to do wrong to us. We should avoid that situation. Although earlier I mentioned the saying sometimes it's better to tolerate than protest, and that is also true. But we should try to avoid people doing wrong to us. On one morning walk on Juhu Beach, Srila Prabhupada said that if someone is very straightforward with you, you should be most upright and straightforward with them. And if someone is very cunning with you, you should be even more cunning than they are. So we have to, we have to meet people according to the way they approach us. Yeah.
And Guru Maharaj, reciprocate in the same manner as you have been treated, then one should be treated the same. One should treat the same way back then?
Oh, well, it depends on the situation. In a positive sense, we should reciprocate. But if they're doing something bad, then it doesn't mean we should do something bad to them, but we should, avoid them or avoid being in a situation where they can harm us.
One thing more, Guru Maharaj, if you may allow. like Malti Adasi Mataji, she just had a question on tolerance, right? So when we read this, Taru Rapi Sahi Shanana. So when we read this, that one has to be more tolerant than a tree. And at the same time, when we reciprocate that, why shall I tolerate unnecessary injustice? So how could we define the definition of tolerance?
Well, the idea is that for ourselves, we should be tolerant. But when it comes to an offense against Krishna or other devotees, we should not be tolerant. Yeah, there's a difference. But yeah, for ourselves, we should be tolerant.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Shamakunda?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Prabhupada. Maharaj, I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you for such a wonderful session and also giving us the legacy of, wonderful legacy of what Srila Prabhupada and you all as a team created this. Without all these sacrifices you have made personally, we couldn't have, got this beautiful temple and all these millions of people around the world been able to follow this and be able to appreciate what sacrifice you've been made to make this happen. So we just, and also for walking us through that experience, you were able to live that as you were reading that. So I just wanted to thank you for such a wonderful session. So thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Encouraging.
Maharaj Shyamukund Prabhu is part of the ISKCON Seattle management, and he himself have bought 10 books of yours, Maharaj.
I want to distribute to as many people as possible, Maharaj. So
wonderful.
I want to give it to my friends so that they can appreciate what has been done.
Okay. Excellent.
So, if there are no more questions, then I would like to invite His Grace Damodar Prasad Prabhu and Namrata Prabhu to express gratitude on the behalf of ISKCON Seattle. Damodar Prasad Prabhu. Namrata Prabhu and Damodar Prasad Prabhu, they are the temple president of ISKCON Seattle. Okay.
Well, in the meantime,
Yes, Maharaj.
yeah, I'd like to offer more appreciation of Srimati Dasi. There was one thing I remember Srila Prabhupada said about her. She's beautiful inside and outside. And yeah, she was a very, I don't know, I'd say ingenious or resourceful or helpful during our second Bombay Pandal. She arranged some very nice exhibits that were, very attractive to the people who came. And yeah, she's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes.
Maharaj, I'm thinking about that cement slab that had probably a roof over it, and that was Janmashtami there. And that's like open, there's a field and our little hut that we had the deities in and our prasadam in. And I know I had some little room in there for some kind of work I could do, but I remember making a Janmashtami baby Krishna, and that was the first time there was acknowledged how the Indian devotees loved baby Krishna. They've lined up around the property to come rock him. And we just had this slab of cement to have our program on. But then we had a stage because I was able to put on Krishna Has a Headache for Prabhupada. And after his lecture, I asked him if he'd please stay to watch the play, because if he didn't, everybody would leave and not see the play. And he agreed to stay. So afterwards, I went to thank him for staying, and he said, "Do you think that I could put on such a play like this for Lord Chaitanya in Los Angeles when we get back?" And I said, "I know you could, Srila Prabhupada, because you can do anything." It was wonderful having opportunity to put plays on wherever we went. Horrible.
Yeah, wonderful. Beautiful.
I remember that little celebration. It was a big celebration, but we had a slab of cement to do it on.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Can I interrupt? I know they wanted to. I'm slow sometimes. So I was just thinking, since we were talking about tolerance, so Vaisheshika Prabhu usually mentions, whenever he talks about titikshava or tolerance, is that when you tolerate, you increase your chidarakta or spiritual blood. So whenever I go through hard time, it really gives me a lot of strength to just remind myself that it's okay, just tolerate. I know it's the hardest thing you're doing is by tolerating the circumstances or situation, but remember, it is increasing your spiritual blood. So that gives me strength. So could you speak a little bit about that? Just your thoughts on that?
Well, as Srila Prabhupada said, if you cannot tolerate, you cannot exist in this world, because the world is full of dualities, and we have to tolerate them. It's one of the first requirements. And in a very beautiful verse about the qualities of a sadhu, on which Srila Prabhupada spoke in Juhu, and he related it very much to our situation there. But the first quality is tolerance. Titikshava karunika saridam sarva dehinam. So, and it's of course, everyone has to tolerate, but especially it's a quality of a Brahmin that he tolerates. And a Sudra laments. So, it's a great quality. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed by his personal example, although he himself said, Shinada Pisuni Chinatra Pisuni. But when there was an offense against Lord Nityananda committed by Jagai and Madhai, he was ready to kill the offenders. So Srila Prabhupada said that shows that when it comes to ourselves, we can be humble and tolerant, but when it comes to the Lord or another devotee being offended, then we should not be humble and tolerant, but we should respond.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Before I hand it over to Shyam Mukund Prabhu, Maharaj, we have done the book event with His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. We have done book event with His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And they all visited Seattle. and all the devotees have the signed copy. So Maharaj, I would like to humbly request, when the coronavirus situation improves and your health permits, please visit Seattle, Maharaj. We are just little north of you. So that's a humble request. Shyam Mukund Prabhu to express gratitude on the behalf of ISKCON Seattle. Shyam Mukund Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much from the bottom of our heart from Seattle devotees and also the devotees around the world who have been listening to this session. Thank you for taking time to walking us through that, making us live through that experience real time. So thank you so much for doing this wonderful session, Maharaj. And we will try to spread this book to as many people as possible, so that they also get the mercy of what you have accomplished along with Srila Prabhupada and other devotees. And as Rajaraman Prabhu said, please consider visiting us and giving your association. And also, Maharaj, this is my personal request. Actually, my son is going to go to UC Irvine. So we'll be visiting in September. Hopefully, if you're around, we in LA, we'll come and visit you, Maharaj. We'll get you.
Yeah, I'm in Santa Barbara. It's about an hour and a half north of LA.
Okay, Maharaj.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you in person.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj. All Krishna Prabhupada. All Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
So if we're ending now, I suggest we conclude with Vaishnava Pranam.
Okay, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Panchakalpatra. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Radharasa Bihari ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.